Ready?
Great. Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. I'd like to start with our first regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors in 2025 on this January 14th. I'm going to ask to do the Pledge of Allegiance first and then go to read out the closed session agenda. Could I ask everybody after the Pledge of Allegiance just to stay standing for a moment to recognize all those that are affected by the fires in Southern California and to think of our 35 local firefighters that are down there helping with this, as well as our CAL FIRE team. So if we could raise, and Supervisor Engel, if you could lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, we are actually going to be doing our closed session agenda at the end of our meeting. So, Madam Clerk, if we could read out the closed session agenda now, so if we know that there's any public comment.
Yes. Item 1, pursuant to Government Code 54956.8, conference with real property negotiator Marcos Munoz, potential purchase price and terms of payment for APN 042015032, negotiating party Jim Harryford. Item 2, pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, one case, significant exposure to litigation. Item 3, pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, one case, significant exposure to litigation. Item 4, pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, County of Calaveras versus Tiscornia Ranches Limited Partnership et al., Calaveras County Superior Court Case Number 20-CV45113.
Thank you. Is there any public comment regarding any of these items? And any public comment online?
There is no online public comment.
Thank you. So just to reiterate, we will go into closed session at the end of our regular meeting.
And we'll, sorry to interrupt, Chair, we'll report out at our next regular meeting.
Correct.
So we'll move down to the election of chair and vice chair, and I'll bring it to the board for any discussion.
Are we gonna do both at the same time, or are we gonna do the chair and then?
I think we should do the chair and then the vice chair, if that's all right.
I will nominate Martin to be the chair, since he's vice chair last year.
I will second that.
Thank you. Do I bring it all to the board then, or is it a roll?
That's
Yes. Just
Public comment.
Oh, sorry, public comment. Any public comment online?
We have no online public comment.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you.
Or yeah, do I vote on that?
Yeah.
Okay, now. for
It's the
vice-
only time you can vote for
Thank
yourself.
An election, good, I might say.
It might have been a 3-2, so you had.
And now for vice chair,
I'll nominate Ben.
Oh, second.
all in favor? Oh, sorry, public comment? Any public comment online?
We have no online public comment.
Thanks, I'll bring it back to the board. All in favor?
Aye.
I accept.
Perfect, thank you. We'll move on now to staff announcements.
Mhm. Staff announcements. This is a time for county staff to provide updates of upcoming county events that may be of interest to the public.
Just waiting for a special guest, actually.
Me?
Yes, there you go.
Quick announcement just tonight, Valley Springs, Genuine Veterans Hall, 5:30 PM, Cosgrove Creek Town Hall. I was gonna tell everybody it was a free concert to get people to show up, but I think we'll have plenty. So that's it.
Thank you.
Special guest has arrived. Good morning, Chair, members of the board, Lisa Medina, Environmental Management Agency. Animal Services is very happy to announce that starting today, we'll be bringing adoptable animals to be presented at our board meetings. If we do have a sweet, lovey pup to bring, or a cat, or maybe even a rabbit. We are very grateful for this opportunity and would like to thank the board, administration, and our animal service and volunteer teams that are making this happen. With that, I'd like to introduce Ace. This is Ace, and this is Shauna, our animal services human. She's not up for adoption. She is priceless, and we are keeping her. Yeah. So Ace is a tricolor mix Australian Shepherd, and he is estimated to be about 1 year old and around 36 pounds. He is a volunteer favorite. When we first got Ace, he was underweight and full of stickers, so he was probably on his own for a little while. He was timid the first day, but now begs for attention. Ace is an excitable, high-energy dog who needs a job. He bonds quickly, gives lovey hugs, and is eager to please. He is still learning his manners and enjoys his walks. Ace has been great with other dogs, big dogs, small dogs, male dogs, female dogs, large and small. A meet and greet is required if you have another dog. Our dog volunteers gave over 596 hours of their precious time, and our cat volunteers gave 100 hours. If you are interested in Ace, you can call us at 754-6509 and check him out. Again, a meet and greet is going to be required if you do have another animal. So we're hoping that, oh, Ace is right at home. Looks like Ben will be taking Ace home. So this is, oh yes, okay. Anyhow, so we just want to share a little bit about animal services. We're really excited about this opportunity. Thank you again, Supervisor Hubbardy, for allowing us to do this. And thank you, board, for also allowing this to happen. It really means a lot to us. And we were going to bring Tito, or I still can't say it. Tito, a little Chihuahua, but he got adopted. And I was on the hunt for a little Valentine sweater for him, but we're very grateful he got adopted. So with that, this is Ace. And again, we're keeping Shauna. She's our fantastic animal service human. She's one of our animal care specialists, and she rocks her job. So very grateful for her. And that is all we have.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Sean. I was going to, speaking of dogs, I was going to give a shameless plug to Sal Manna, and he turned up today. So that was totally unplanned. But if you haven't seen Sal's book on dogs, Sal does so many great books about Calaveras County. He is our Western historian on the west side of the county, and his new book about dogs in Calaveras is brilliant. So take a look. Do we have any other staff announcements?
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Okay, we'll move on to public comment.
General public comment, any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard.
Thank you. Ms. McBride?
Good morning, Terry McBride, Committee Chair, Senator of New California State, President Pro Tem of the Senate. I want to show you two of my favorite books, Doctrine of the Lesser Magistrate and the Constitution. This is a fabulous Constitution because it shows that anything that's socialist or communist is anti-constitution. It's worth the read. This is also worth the read because it shows you your power. And what I have to give you today, once I'm done, I apologize. I'm so excited about the dog. I forgot about the paperwork. California State Auditor issues a qualified 2023 internal financial statement. Have you seen that? That means that 98% of the paperwork they've been saying about their finances are a fraud. They can't prove it. 98%. And then included with that is an article by our governor saying that he unveils balanced California budget proposal would not include any deficit. So once again, he's lying. This is the same man that told you to go to electronic and mail in ballots. This is the same man that told people that they must wear masks, had to socially distance, had to close their business. We haven't recovered from that. So I want to remind you, and I've given some of you these. I can't remember who I gave these to, but I have them. It's a fabulous read. And I was reading, do you guys remember when President Trump had all the generals come and meet with him? And the press said, what's the meeting all about? He says, the storm. And they said, well, what storm? He says, you'll find out. Look at what's going on in Southern California. So this is from Sir Patrick Henry, writing to King George. Sir, we have done everything that could be done to avert the storm. You think we're in it now? I do. Also, I want to show that next on February 1st, we will be at the county library. We are having hearings. Now, these are called citizens hearings, but we'll have the legislature of New California here. I welcome you. We're all going to be working together. And I know in your heart of hearts, you're constitutionalists and you're patriots. I know it. So I welcome you to come to this. And then Paul, our president, the person that's put this all together and is talking with Trump's team, is well aware of what we're doing. Notice he's been talking to 51st State. He'll be there. And so you can ask questions as Board of Supervisors. And I think you'd be really interested in the answers that you receive. Anyway, if you would like this, let me know. I'm happy to let you have them. I'll hand these over to you. Congratulations to those that won. I wish you only the best. I pray for our country. I know we're going to come out on this.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Mr. Butner.
My name is Christopher Butner, publisher of Calaveras2026election.com. This first regular meeting of the newly composed Board of Supervisors represents an orchestrated stress test by the four incumbent supervisors of Supervisor Andal's susceptibility and willingness to join her four new colleagues in their established corrupt voting bloc and pattern. CEO Hitchcock, thus far, you have been largely spared from my interrogations. This is partly because your Board of Supervisors has provided a perpetual flow of malfeasance, and it is partly because you've been given fair and ample opportunities to put your stamp upon this government as you near completion of your second year of service. As an observant citizen, my 2-year grade of your performance and your demonstrated competence in the role of CEO is a D- and plummeting. How is it that you sat beside Stopper during the November 26 meeting and did not advise him or insist he stop texting like a teenager from the dais during open session? Teresa, it's now time to exercise the exit clause in your employment contract. At an annual salary of $212,000, Calaveras citizens deserve a county executive officer that provides disciplined leadership and oversight of the elected governing body. Now that 3 of the 4 returning supervisors, Huberty, Follendorf, and Tofinelli, are under open and pending California Fair Political Practices Commission cases for a range of violations of the Political Reform Act, including failure to file factual and timely campaign finance statements, failure to disclose conflicts of economic interests, and in the state's open case investigating Follendorf for disposition of almost $8,500 in missing union campaign contributions to her 2020 campaign. Your turn is coming, Ben. I anticipate that the FPPC complaint I initiated against you will soon be a publicly visible state case. At that time, all 4 incumbent supervisors, Huberty, Follendorf, Tofinelli, and Stopper, would be under open and pending FPPC cases for the previously cited violations of the Political Reform Act, potentially paralyzing this government and requiring immediate state intervention to provide some manner of interim provisional governance. Additionally, Ben, if an investigation of allegations of your conflict of economic interest for unreported business activities with one of your favored constituents proves accurate, you'll be the respondent to a sworn complaint for the violation of California Government Code Section 1090. The absurdity of Hubbardie and Stopper having just been respectively elected as 2025 Chair and Vice Chair reflects the ethical bankruptcy of this government, which will lead to its inevitable reputational and financial bankruptcy. My name is Christopher Butner, publisher of Calaveras 2026election.com.
Morning, Board of Supervisors, newly elected Chair and Vice Chair. My name is Armando Valerio. I'm a Delta College trustee on the Board of Trustees as newly elected for Area 5. I want to introduce myself to all of you and congratulate Supervisor Andal and Supervisor Toffenelli for re-election and you for being elected. So on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, on the behalf of Delta College Board, I'd like to congratulate you all for doing a great job. A couple of other things, just to get a little bit of background on myself. So I'm involved in a couple of other things. One is I'm on the Citizens Advisory Board as CHP Commissioner, and I represent the Valley Division. The Valley Division includes here in San Andreas. So I just want to let you know that I'm available if there's any issues with the CHP that you would like me to take to the Commissioner. We meet on a quarterly basis, and there's 8 divisions within California for the CHP, so I attend that on a regular basis. The other thing also is my other hat is I work for San Joaquin County Public Health. And in your December meeting, you had a presentation by Public Health. And I just want to acknowledge the 2 individuals who did a great job in providing that information. Ms. Rodriguez and Ms. Graham, they did excellent. And it's interesting because we do the community health needs assessment. So it's very interesting to see the differences or the similarities between both our counties. On the presentation, just one little note of if it could be changed. It noted Delta College, and it said it was, I think, 55-mile radius, but it said in Modesto. So if it could be stocked, it can be placed in there. I appreciate it. But again, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you. And if I can be of assistance from the Delta College perspective for this area, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any more public comment?
Just if you have any cards, pass them around, please.
Great, thank you. Any comment online?
No, we do. There's no public.
That's, of course, there's no
comment
public
online.
comment online. Thank you. So we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request the removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion.
Is there,
I would like to pull. Thank you, Miss Stacy. I would like to pull number 6 for discussion.
well, thank you.
I would like pull number 8.
Number 8. Would any member of the public like to pull anything?
16 and 17, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'll bring it back to the board then.
I'll move,
I'll look for a motion. Yes, sir.
I'll move, all the items that were not pulled.
I'll second.
Go ahead, Mr.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's 5-0.
Thank you.
And let's.
No.
I did public comment.
There's no.
There's no public comment on consent
Yeah.
agenda items that isn't pulled.
Okay.
Except for the items that have been pulled.
Perfect. Great. Okay, let's
8 or 6.
No, 6.
Sorry, Martin. I apologize.
I'll read it first. I'll read it first.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Item 6, action item, administrative office. 1, make a public benefit finding. And 2, approve a community organization district allocation to the Calaveras County Office of Emergency Services in partnership with the County Board of Education and the CHP in the amount of $5,000 for the Every 15 Minutes program.
Supervisor Stopper.
Yes, you know, we just were notified that, Calaveras High School's, principal's leaving. I've known this since before November that she was leaving, and so did they. And Eric's been putting this together, doing all the groundwork. And I've, with the respect of the board supporting me on this, have gotten the Calaveras to pay for this, So they want to put it off till next year,
Next school year, yes, sir.
next school year. He did all the groundwork. We have the money. Other than providing the place, I would like to give them the opportunity to continue forward if they decide to this year, but most likely they won't be able to. But to go ahead and just amend this so that they can use that money into next year. And then maybe I can catch, because I was just notified about this morning. I could catch up with the county offices of education and maybe get them to take a hard step forward on it this year, possibly. But if we vote yes on this now and amend it so that it can be used in like a year and 6 months or whatever. Or is it open ended right now?
Yeah, Supervisor Stopper, I don't believe that there's any restrictions on when the school would do the program. It's for our budget this year, of course, this fiscal year, but I'm not seeing
We
anything
can-
that would limit
We can
them.
re-encumber it into the next budget if it's done that way, could we not? I mean, it's small amount but it's a simple clerical thing.
Yes, we could do that.
So I think we would be fine approving it now without pulling it and redoing everything next year, and then they have the opportunity to do it when they need to. And possibly with a small push, we can get it done this year.
I would appreciate that very much.
Super. So
I'll make, unless there's public.
I was gonna say, is there any public comment regarding this? In which case I'll bring it back to the board.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
I'll second it. I mean, I don't.
Second by Supervisor Fallendorf. All in favor?
I.
Sorry, Gary, you wanted to say something.
No, I just want to make sure that your motion says you encumber it for next year if they don't.
Yeah.
That's the total motion that you.
Well, with no need to, it's open ended and Teresa will do
Just
that
wanna
with
make
the
sure we're
budget
clear.
when they get to it.
Just want to be totally clear.
We're good.
That passes
Very good.
5-0. Madam Clerk, can we read out item number 8?
Item 8, action item, Clerk of the Board of Supervisors, appointment of applicants to serve on various committees, commissions, advisory boards, special districts, and community service areas.
Yeah, I pulled this item, if you go down, the Fish and Game Commission. I have an applicant on here, one applicant on here, and this position's been empty for a while for District 1. But now I have another application. So what I would like to do is remove the District 1 until our next meeting. So I have a chance to go over both of the application, the new application. I've already gone over this. And make a determination on which one I want to go with going forward.
Is there any public comment regarding this? So we'd like to go forward. As you described, would you make that motion then?
Yeah, I will make the motion to go forward on the remainder of everything on this agenda item, except for the Fish and Game Commission District 1.
Perfect. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Supervisor. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Madam Clerk, can we read item number 16?
Item 16, action item, Human Resources, approve appointment of a candidate in the Sheriff's Department pursuant to County Code Section 2.64.645, employment of family member.
Mr. Butler?
My name is Christopher Budner, publisher of Calaveras 2026election.com. The following statement is to be entered in whole into the public record and become part of the official minutes of this meeting, with me identified by name, Christopher Butner, as having registered my opposition to the board's approval today of action item 16, Human Resources ID number 8351, approve appointment of a candidate in the Sheriff's Department pursuant to County Code Section 2.64.645, employment of family member. The agenda item discussion states that, quote, every effort was made to recruit for the position of Deputy Sheriff Level 1, Level 2, in which the family member is being employed, end quote. Every effort is a vague yet declarative and hyperbolic statement. It needs to be substantiated with hard facts and documentation for review. Otherwise, it is just fluff concealing nepotism. Prove it. Prove that, quote, every effort was made to recruit, end quote. That documentation needs to be provided for review by the 5 members of the Board of Supervisors prior to their vote to determine whether, in fact, quote, every effort was made to recruit, end quote. The agenda item discussion summary states that, quote, the candidate is an experienced lateral hire and will not have to attend the academy, end quote. In what department within Calaveras County government is this lateral hire family member currently working? And what prior experience as a deputy sheriff level 1, level 2 does this individual have that they will not have to attend the academy? That is a reasonable question to be asked and answered. What is their name? That too is a reasonable question to be asked and answered. Continue agenda item 16 for further consideration once the questions I presented here have been adequately and transparently addressed for the public. The majority of the members of this Board of Supervisors are now individually under active state investigations for numerous allegations of financial impropriety with their campaign finance filings, with Supervisor Gary Tofinelli as the newest member joining the open and pending FPPC case club for numerous violations allegedly of the Political Reform Act. This would be a good time for this board to open its eyes collectively and realize that you folks better start playing it by the straight and narrow right now. Full transparency would be a great start of this 2025 new year. Let it begin today. My name is Christopher Butner, publisher of Calaveras 2026 election.com. Thank you.
Judy Hawkins, Human Resource and Risk Management Director. And so I will address the amount of open positions right now we have within the Sheriff's Department by making this appointment. It is not taking any other positions away. We have a continuous recruitment going for our Deputy 1-2s. And so right now, currently going through the list, I believe we have about 7 open positions. And we have a few coming out of the academy. So we are not taking any positions away from anyone who is going through an active recruitment process. Now, it is extremely difficult for the county to get lateral hires. Right now, emails are constantly going back and forth between all HR directors within the state of California, which I'm sure among the Sheriff's Department also. It is extremely difficult to get experienced candidates. This candidate has worked for the county previously, and they will be working in a completely different division than their family member. We are looking to place this candidate in the courts where the family member is over patrol. So this is completely separate division of duties, and we have met the requirements of our ordinance. He was a successful candidate during the recruitment process. There is not any type of reporting up to the family member. And so if there's anything I've left out, or the sheriff would like to add anything?
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Sheriff.
Thank you, sir. So this is a deputy that worked for us before the county, and, you know, on behalf of the taxpayers, we've already invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in his training through the field training program. He was a successful deputy. He only left employment with the county because he rejoined the military. We thank him. We supported him very much for making that decision to continue to defend our country. And he's come back and wanting to seek reemployment with us as a deputy. And we're proud and would like to have him back.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Whiting, this is the one we voted a couple years ago to keep the position open for said candidate.
Yes,
No.
he was,
Some years ago.
he was on an extended military leave as he went to a long-term training and then made the decision. So we had kept his position while he was gone for a long time at that training. But then when he made the decision just to completely re-enter the military, he separated employment with the county. So
Yeah.
yes, this is the same person.
Understood. Thank you.
Do we have any public comment? With that, I'll bring it back to the board. Do
I'll move.
we have a second?
Yeah.
Thank you. All in favor?
Do we want to do something?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Passes 5-0. Madam Clerk, will we read out item 17?
Item 17, action item, Human Resources, approve appointment of an extra hire candidate in the District Attorney's Office pursuant to County Code Section 2.64.645, employment of family member.
Mr. Butner?
My name is Christopher Butner, publisher of Calaveras2026election.com. The following statement is to be entered in whole into the public record and become part of the official minutes of this meeting, with me identified by name, Christopher Butner, as having registered my opposition to the board's approval today of item 17, approve appointment of an extra hire candidate in the district attorney's office pursuant to County Code Section 2.64.645, employment of family member. The agenda item discussion summary states that, quote, this is an urgent placement and will be filled on a temporary basis by an extra hire, end quote. Urgent placement is a declarative statement of an immediate need having arisen. Therefore, this urgency for placement must be substantiated with hard facts and documentation for review. Otherwise, as noted in my opposition to agenda item 16, it is more fluff concealing nepotism. Prove that this placement is urgent. Substantiate the urgency and the reason or reasons for it. Is District Attorney Uke under pressure to establish a public integrity unit in her office to investigate endemic Calaveras County government corruption? Is this urgent placement in response to District Attorney Uke having numerous new sworn complaints filed in December against her and her office with both state and federal law enforcement agencies for negligence of oath of office, breach of the public trust, quid pro quo corruption, selective law enforcement, civil and constitutional rights violations, as well as abuse of discretion? Is this urgent placement in response to District Attorney Uke anticipating time and resource-consuming interactions with any or all of the following agencies? The 2024-2025 Calaveras County Grand Jury, State Bar of California, California Attorney General, California Civil Rights Department, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, and the Fair Political Practices Commission? And in what department within Calaveras District Attorney's Office will this family member currently work, and what prior experience does this person have to meet this urgent requirement for placement, and what is this individual's name? All are reasonable questions that need to be transparently answered. Continue agenda item 17 for further consideration once the questions I presented here have been adequately and transparently addressed for the public. As noted in agenda item 16, this would be a good time for you folks to realize that you better start playing it by the straight and narrow right now. My name is Christopher Butner, publisher of Calaveras2026election.com.
Ms. Hawkins?
So this particular candidate, we are bringing in on a temporary basis. The DA's office has new requirements that they have to meet regarding blind charging. And so it is an immediate need to get this position filled while they look at the needs of if they will need a permanent position or what the organization will be. The candidate that they are requesting has strong experience with looking at cases, can be able to identify the information that needs to be turned over to the DA's office. And so while this is an extra hire, but because there is a family member in the department, we are bringing it forward for transparency. And
with the structure that the DA has, this particular extra hire will not report to their family member. I will let Brad add.
Morning, Brad Jones, Assistant District Attorney. This is in response to a new law that went into effect January 1st of this year that requires prosecutors in the state of California to charge on what's called a race-blind charging basis. That process requires reports to be redacted. Our system does that automatically, but staff need to select which reports go in there, which cases are exempt, which cases qualify, and that takes a lot of experience. This candidate has a career of experience in the state of California in the criminal justice system. And that experience will be extremely helpful. And we're very lucky to have this opportunity as we're figuring out how this goes. Hopefully the process speeds up, but it takes a lot of resources to comply with this new law and get the system going. And we're rolling it out now, but we could certainly use the help. And the relationship is to another extra hire employee that also had a full career in public service here in Calaveras County that is working as a retired annuitant. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions? Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
Just reconfirm that this is a temporary basis until we can fill it and stay legitimate with the state law until such time we find someone that.
Absolutely. And if it needs to be ongoing, then we would probably open up a recruitment to fulfill that need on an ongoing basis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are there any other public comment? With that, I'll bring it back to the board.
I'd like to make a motion. With this motion, I'd like to say that, you know, with all the things that were said here at the podium, I think that we should have definitely, you know, the protest on, but when it comes to all the allegations of malfeasance or whatever, strike that from the public record because I didn't hear any proof. The burden of proof said, I don't think that should be part of the public record when it comes to the minutes of the meeting. I'd like to strike that as the board. That's my motion.
Do I have a second?
Sorry, Supervisor Stopper, I think that the full public comments do need to, it doesn't obviously mean that any public comment on any given day is true or not true, but they do need to be included in the record as delivered.
Okay.
With that, then just a motion to move forward.
Do we have a second?
Okay.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. So we'll move on to our regular agenda. Madam Clerk. Oh, sorry. Sure. Oh.
Okay.
Okay, now, let's move on to our regular agenda. Item number 23, Madam Clerk.
Yes. Item 23, action item, Clerk of the Board of Supervisors, adopt the 2025 Board of Supervisors meeting calendar, and I can bring that up, share.
I just wanted to note two things on this, that it's always the second and fourth, I'm sorry, Tuesday of the month, except for November because of Veterans Day. It's
and also CSAC.
And CSAC is actually in December this year.
Oh,
yeah, so it doesn't conflict. The only other thing is that we only have one meeting in December. So the November doesn't follow suit. And December, we only have one meeting. Is there any other comment regarding? Is there any public comment regarding our schedule? Do I have a motion?
so moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, sorry. Passes 5-0. We'll move on to item number 24.
Item 24, action item, Clerk of the Board of Supervisors, assign members of the Board of Supervisors to various committees for the calendar year of 2025.
So could I ask my fellow board members, how would you like to do this? Stacy and I were thinking that we probably should just run down each one. I know we normally don't do that, but just, we might be doing a bigger shuffle this year.
If so, just to let everyone know, I'm personally comfortable with the ones I've been working with. I think CSAC and RCRC already decided unless somebody wants.
Well, it could be done pretty quickly then. if
Yeah,
that's all right.
no, I'm definitely willing to go down one by one, but,
Okay.
I don't think we need to go down one by one unless, I think if somebody wants to speak up about a different one that they want to be on or be removed from,
Okay.
we can deal it that way, but.
Well, you've all got a list in front of you, correct?
Yes,
correct.
Okay. So let me just get started. I actually talked to Supervisor Ondal about taking Area 12. I'm sorry, not Area
No.
12. The child support, that's right.
Central Sierra Child Support Agency.
So I'll keep Area 12 as just a CSA. You
So-
happy with that?
Central
Great,
Sierra.
thank you.
So
Um,
you want to be removed from the Central Sierra Child?
I was going to put,
You're actually chair right now.
but I thought that ended.
No.
Doesn't it end at the end of this year?
No,
Last year.
I don't think it
Maybe
ends
last year.
until June.
Okay. You
But I don't care if you want, then we just pick a new chair, or she would take over. But
we still do need an alternate. Supervisor Garamendi was the alternate for that one. So
Do we want to leave it then?
I mean, if you don't want to be on, and she wants, that's
Well,
fine.
the
We
reason
we
being
can
is I
go-
wanted to give Supervisor Ondal a couple of committees, and I felt because this was related to children, it
That's fine.
fitted.
I would be in favor. I was just pointing
Okay.
out that
Okay,
It's in my wheelhouse and I'm
that's
comfortable
fine.
taking it.
so I'm sorry,
so
will you be the alternate then? Because we still
I'll
need
be
a-
the alternate.
Okay,
So if we run down,
I have one, and this is, I wasn't thinking about it, not you, Stacy, but the other Stacy might kill me.
Stacy.
I'm open just with my changes during the day, since it is a day meeting. If you are comfortable, I'm okay with giving up CMCAA. With adjusting my schedule with how I've got things going on at home right now, but if not, I can make it work. But I'm willing to switch if, to get off that, to free up my scheduling.
That's the quarterly,
Yeah,
so it's
Yeah.
4 times a
Yeah,
year.
it's 4 times a year.
It's 4
unless
times a
something
year.
happens.
yeah,
that's a good committee.
it is a good one, and I'm trying to rearrange my daytime activities right now since things have changed a little bit.
So if I could just confirm then, the Calaveras Amador McCollum River Authority is Autumn. The Debt Advisory Committee would then be Autumn as well.
Hmm.
And the McCollum River Association is Autumn. Then Fallendorf will be RCRC, Golden State, Finance, Golden State Connect, Environmental Services.
Yes.
I would like to take Sierra Nevada Conservancy.
Okay.
Unless anybody else has any.
No, you've been the alternate.
And
You
then
want me to be the alternate on it?
that'd be great. And then Supervisor Ondal would be taking Upper McCollum River Watershed Authority.
Mhm.
Right.
We do need to discuss strategic planning and finance. I'm assuming since you're chair and that's what has worked, for strategic planning and finance.
Yes,
And that too, I don't know. I know at the strategic planning, it was discussed that, to keep consistency, but I'm also open if there's another supervisor, because I've been on that for a while. Would like to step in, but I will say that having the chair on that board is beneficial because it does blend into the board meetings.
yes, I would like to be on that. Thank you. If everybody else is all right.
I think Amanda, you've done a phenomenal job over there, and you've had your hand in the mix from the very beginning of moving forward on that. So there's some structural knowledge there, along with chair being able to facilitate it into the meetings.
Okay, then is there someone,
We need another supervisor and we need an alternate.
I'm willing to fill either.
um.
So should we put,
I mean, I get, and that's what we talked about at the meeting last time when Jack was there, was to keep the consistency. But I'm happy to flux. If
I'm
we-
not gonna push my ADHD
I know.
into strategic planning, so.
But I think it might be good for you since you're
so
new.
we
I
put
agree.
Supervisor
Get into it, so
Andal,
you
do you mind
can-
being the alternate, just so you know it?
And then we can adjust it later in the year. Can we always adjust it?
Of course.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's do that and then we can adjust it and kick it off for the year, get in a schedule with staff so it's not too much of a turnover. And then maybe halfway through the year, we can talk about changing it.
Just so I'm clear, it will be Supervisor Huberty and yourself as the board reps with Supervisor Andal as the alternate.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So we need just to make sure that for LAFCO, the alternate, are you happy being the alternate for LAFCO?
It's a fun one.
And then
Seems like it.
I think that's it. I
Can
think
we,
Mental health board.
Oh,
I've been
mental
on
health.
it, I've been on it for 2 years. I'd like to, move on.
I could take that.
You can
You're
take
right.
mental health.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll be alternate, but I shouldn't be at the head of those. Cause, I'll end up-
I think every supervisor should be on it for at least a couple of years.
I've attended
It's very beneficial at sometimes.
Yes.
it. It's lovely.
Chair, did we decide on Amanda's CMCAA?
I guess it's if you have the time.
Okay, and it's quarterly.
I did write you down as. being-
Okay, so I am.
Yeah.
Okay,
You got voluntold.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Just trying to be clear.
So I'm off of it, but I'm still alternate.
I'll
on it.
make a motion on that.
It's up to you.
You were gonna be alternate on it, correct?
No, you want to be.
So you wanna be on it, so Martin and her would be on it, and then I would be the alternate, or you would?
Are you comfortable with that?
I'm
Karen?
comfortable with everything that I'm, listed. You see me listed here on, with the exception of the mental health board, which I think Martin just took over. Everything else I'm fine with.
Right. So I think that's it, Stacy.
Okay, I'm checking my list to make sure I have my notes all here.
Just for my clarity, the
Yeah.
UC cooperative extension, that is that non-active?
No, I put you down for that.
Okay,
Yeah, that's you.
No, not the upper, right above it. Or are those,
Oh, good question.
it just says chair and vice chair.
Chair. I don't know.
that's the chair and vice chair, whatever is, so
Whoever's in that.
yourself.
Automatically.
Automatically.
Thank you.
No, the UC. co-op.
Cooperative Extension Advisory Council.
That's automatic. Okay.
Let's see, I wanna double check because we had. That was on the other thing, a couple of supervisors meeting with CCWD at times for just with a couple of their board members, discussion, building relationship,
Yeah.
if, in this case, it's probably not good that I should, yeah.
Okay.
Just because I shouldn't be making deals with my boss's boss and just so that they.
So we normally meet with CCWD. It's not on several times a year, just to.
Not listed.
Not listed.
It's.
It would,
rare.
it would probably be prudent to have it be somebody else. I think it would be
I'm
cleaner.
gonna have someone else do that if they're. That's, if we need to discuss. who the-
Well, the last time it was Supervisor Garamendi, CEO Hitchcock and myself, so I would think it'd be the same. Just keep the vice. Oh, no, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Yes, the vice chair.
Yes,
Yeah.
we'll get another person. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, do we have any public comment on these committee positions? Okay, with that, I'll bring it back to the board. For a motion,
So
Yep.
moved.
do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. So we'll move on to the next item in our regular agenda, which is item number 25.
Item 25, resolution, Sheriff, by roll call vote, One, approve the authorize the sheriff and or undersheriff to execute the 2024 grant project agreement number G 240303L01 with the State of California Department of Parks and Recreation Off-Highway Motor Vehicle Recreation Division and the not to exceed amount of $35,894 for the performance period from September 7th, 2024 through September 6th, 2025. And two, grant the sheriff and or undersheriff authority to execute future amendments and other grant-related documents within G 240303L01 agreement term. And three, adopt a resolution approving the sheriff's office, the applicant, to apply for grant funds from the State of California Department of Parks and Recreation Off-Highway Motor Vehicle Grant Funds when the next grant cycle opens.
Great. And with that,
Morning, board.
morning.
Typically, this item is on the consent agenda, but changes make it, we need a roll call vote. So I'm here to answer any questions. You guys have anything about this item?
Just, it's a great program and we just do your best at getting the money rolling in so that we can take care of our OHV program.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you because I know that it's my district that gets a lot of that attention and I appreciate what you do. So thank you. Any other comments? Bring it back to the board for motion.
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Did we-
Oh, sorry, it's roll call. What am I saying?
It's okay.
Public comment.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Roll call. But did we do public comment?
Yes.
I did ask. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, roll call vote, District 1,
Aye.
District 2,
Aye.
District 3,
Aye.
District 4. Aye. District 5,
I
Didn't hear it.
passes 5-0 for the board.
said this email time.
Yeah. Oh my, I need to, actually, I did. Thank you. Okay, item number 26.
Item 26, resolution, Environmental Management Agency, conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution approving the 2024 Eastern San Joaquin Groundwater Sustainability Plan Amendment and authorizing the Secretary of the Eastern San Joaquin Groundwater Authority to submit it to the California Department of Water Resources.
Lisa.
Good morning, Chair, board members, Lisa Medina, Environmental Management Agency.
I'm so, I apologize for interrupting. We need to open
Oh,
a public
yeah.
hearing, Chair.
Thank you. Putting up a public hearing. Ms. Medina.
Good morning again. Lisa Medina, Environmental Management Agency. So today we bring before you two resolutions. The first is approving the amended Eastern San Joaquin Groundwater Sustainability Plan, shortened BSP. The second is accepting the 2024 5-year Groundwater Sustainability Plan periodic evaluation. A lot of information. So just a little bit of history. In 2014, the California legislature passed and the governor signed the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act of 2015, shortened SGMA, for the purpose of providing local groundwater sustainability agencies with the authority and technical and financial assistance necessary to sustainably manage groundwater as required by state law. Calaveras County joined the Eastside Groundwater Sustainability Agency, Eastside GSA, because a small portion of the northeastern county is critically overdrawn. So the Eastside GSA consists of Calaveras County, CCWD, Stanislaus County, and Rock Creek Water District. The Eastside GSA joined with 15 other GSAs overlying the Eastern San Joaquin Groundwater Basin to form a larger JPA known as the Eastern San Joaquin Groundwater Authority to share resources, preserve existing groundwater, and to help recharge depleted aquifers and basins to levels approved by the state. To comply with this, SGMA GSAs are required to adopt groundwater sustainability plans, and the plans must be approved by the Department of Water Resources and reevaluated every 5 years. So that's where we are right now. In 2020, the Eastern San Joaquin Authority prepared one single GSP and all 16 of its members, including ours. The GSP was ultimately approved by DWR in 2023 with some expectations and some caveats, which were to be made at the 5-year evaluation stage. Since all the members of the Eastside GSA need to go to their individual boards, supervisors and directors to approve this GSP, we are asking the board to approve the documents to comply with Sigma today. All GSPs are adopting the same documents and will continue to coordinate together through the authority to implement the groundwater sustainability plan. When all the GSAs have approved and revised the revised GSP and 5-year periodic evaluation, the authority will submit them to DWR for review and approval. So these documents are due to DWR by the end of this month, hence the reason why they are being presented today.
Any board questions?
Some kind of questions, but more statements. We do have to approve this to comply with the GSA and requirements put forward by the WDR. Moving forward, as we make these plans, just be cognizant, we are the uphill part of the entire area. And as we move forward, our water is the supplier. So and everyone already knows, but I'm just reiterating it. As we move forward with any further plans and make sure that we're protecting our own water rights as much as possible moving forward. And I'm sure that any other water agencies will be on top of that with you. I just want to say out loud. And with that, if there's no other board comments,
Actually, this plan and this GSA that we belong to only really covers the western end of the county, and it comes up towards the Valley Springs area. A little bit of Valley Springs PUD is involved in it. Most of the water being used, this is groundwater. This is the Sustainability Act. Is actually in San Joaquin County because of all the orchards that they have. They just draw that water, and we're providing, as Ben said, most of all that water that comes down because we're the upper it goes down there. But it's not the entire county. It's just the western end of the county that this we required for this protection plan. And we did adopt a plan earlier, but the state adopted it, but they came back with some requirements so this is actually a revised part of it, what the state wanted us to put into it. And that's why it's coming back to us now. It will come back again in 5 years because we have to show during the course of the 5 years how much the groundwater either dropped or rose because of the plan, and then adopt that plan, adjust it to that to keep the sustainability of that water at a certain level. So that's the whole gist of the thing.
yes.
Usually important. Do we have any public comment on this item? With that, I'll bring it back to the board.
Close the.
Don't we vote and then I close it? Or
Close it and then
Okay,
you can vote.
so we'll close the public hearing. I'll bring it back to the board. Thank you, Stopper.
I'll move this item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed 5-0. We'll now move on to item number 27.
Item 27, resolution, Environmental Management Agency, conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution approving the 2024 Eastern San Joaquin Groundwater Sustainability Plan periodic evaluation and authorizing the Secretary of the Eastern San Joaquin Groundwater Authority to submit it to the California Department of Resources.
And with that, I'll open the public hearing. Ms. Medina?
So as previously discussed, this is accepting the 5-year evaluation that was submitted and that will be due at the end of the month to DWR. And that has already been discussed. So we're hoping to kind of caveat those two together.
Thank you. Is there any public comment regarding this item? Okay, with that, I will bring it back to the board and if there's any comments. Nope. I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Move on to item 28, which is an informational item. I don't see Ms.
Ms.
Galino
Galino, I
here.
see her online, but I don't obviously see her do we want to take a quick recess or?
Let's take a 5-minute break and come back at 5 after 10. Thank you. Right, and we're back. Madam Clerk, could you read out item number 28?
Item 28, informational item, economic and community development. Receive a presentation from Economic and Community Development regarding workforce housing project guidelines, prioritization, and the selection criteria for permanent local housing allocation and regional early action planning 2.0 grant funds.
Thank you. Ms. Galino.
Good morning, Chair Hubbard, Honorable Board of Supervisors, Kathy Galino, your Economic and Community Development Director. And today we have some exciting guidelines and information regarding both our PLHA and our REAP 2.0 funding for workforce housing development. And I'd like to bring that up. Okay, Stacy, where is it? Oh, come back.
Share up. And then click on it.
Awesome.
There you go.
Thank you. All right. Put it into mode.
There.
Oh, there. Ta-da. Listen. All right. So this is a program that is in collaboration with Economic and Community Development Planning, the Administration Office, regarding some of our funding for workforce housing development through California Housing and Community Development, HCD. We have some programs that we work in collaboration with HHSA on, primarily the Down Payment Assistance Program and the Home Modification Accessibility Program. Those programs are housed in HHSA. So we kind of have two parts of housing in Calaveras County, right? We have those that are service-based, needs-based, that are with Health and Human Services. Then we have like construction, development, and really building things, you know, for our employees and people in our community. The two grants that we have right now, which is the permanent local housing allocation, and the REAP 2.0 or regional early access planning, action planning, total about $2.4 million. So it's not a lot, but it's, I believe, something that we can really make something happen good in our communities. The board has directed staff to look at targeting workforce housing and households that are between 80 and 120% of area median income, which covers a significant portion of this county. So we're looking at targeting home ownership. So we could build rentals, but what we're looking at is actually giving opportunity for our workforce to have housing to purchase. They can use the down payment assistance program. They can use other opportunities in our community for becoming a homeowner, then opening up some rentals for other people to come into the rental. So it's kind of a moving forward, backfilling, moving forward. So we want to leverage the HCD grants that we have to conduct specifically pre-development. So these are things like obtaining land entitlements, doing cultural and environmental surveys, all the things that can bog down a developer when they're trying to build housing. We're also looking at infrastructure improvements to a limited degree. We're looking at applying for or providing permit fee offsets, impact fee offsets, and other things that make it very attractive for a developer to come in and build. And the most important thing is that we'll help meet our regional housing needs assessment, which is part of our housing element, part of our general plan. So this is just a breakdown of the funding. The PLHA is about 1.28 million. We don't know what we're going to receive for 2024 yet. The PLHA is the funding that we could receive from, we get a $75 allocation. That's when there is, excuse me, let me slow down. Whenever anything transfers fee title, when housing transfers fee title, there's a $75 fee that is collected and the state holds that. Every 5 years, that allocation comes back to the county once we develop a plan on how we want to use that funding for housing in our community. Currently, there's 435,000 remaining for the down payment assistance program and the home modification program. That, as I mentioned, is going to be staying with Health and Human Services Agency. The remaining funds of approximately 745,000 are going to be allocated for pre-development under planning and economic development. We are looking at developing a partnership agreement with our developers, putting out a request for proposals and qualifications. I'm drafting that now and we'll be routing that around to department staff. And again, as I mentioned, it's for site prep, grading, land entitlements, zoning, environmental and cultural studies, demolition activities, mitigation measures, and permitting. And the funding program is really focused on shovel-ready projects. I've talked to a lot of developers over the last couple of years, and a lot of them are like, ooh, this is really exciting. I don't think they're there yet. We're really looking at infill projects and places where there is a potential very close to where there's work, where there's services, so it needs to really be focused on infill. And 5% of the grant is for administration, so it will help cover our costs. On the PLHA, it needs to be spent by June 2030. On the REAP 2.0, I'm still trying to get it to kick out. It may be that we have to expend those funds by 2026, which means we really need to hit the ground running hard, fast. So this is on the REAP 2.0. Again, as I mentioned, most of this stuff, I'm kind of talking ahead of the slides. We did submit in December 20th, we submitted a $500,000 advancement on the grant, which was approved. So that we will have some seed funding. It's very hard, especially with budgetary constraints, to allocate or to expend funds that we don't have yet and then wait for reimbursement. So the state was great about giving us a $500,000 advancement on the grant. And we should be receiving that soon, hopefully. And again, permit fees, utility connections will need to be expended by 2026. I'm going to ask for a 5-year deadline on or expansion, 5-year extension. There we go. I'll get it right. For actual completion of construction. I think once we get going vertical, that the extension will be accepted. So I'm preparing, as I said, an invitation to bid. And actually, I don't want to call it an invitation to bid anymore. I really want to call it a request for proposals. I want the developers to come to us with their proposal on projects that they feel would be well suited for the funding for both profit and nonprofit developers. I've reached out to several nonprofit developers. Unfortunately, Habitat for Humanity's got their hands full, but there were other nonprofits that I've met during a conference down in Southern California. We'll host pre-application meetings so they'll understand what the project's about, what our goals are. It'll be more than what's in the RFP. Then we'll evaluate and we'll rank the bids. We'll negotiate a partnership and funding agreement, and then oversee construction and monitoring. That is all written into the grant as far as conducting the reporting to the state. So it sounds a lot easier than it probably will be. This would be my first project in Calaveras County of this type, and I'm not sure that it's been done before, but I'm very excited about it.
It's really okay.
You think so? Well, I appreciate your confidence. So in your packet, there's a couple of things that I wanted to get your input on and your thoughts, which is a ranking criteria. And that it probably was like in 2-point font, but it looks something like that. So they're columns and there's point values assigned to each one of them. The first one is project proponent information, the site address, APNs, supervisorial district, the acres and the zoning, water provider and capacity, 15 points, sewer provider and capacity, because we all know that capacity is a major issue, 15 points. Infill project, that's the biggest points. It really, really needs to be focused on an infill project. We really don't want to do any greenscape development. We really want to look at properties that are, again, close to walking, transportation, schools, shopping, work. Another 15.
Yeah, Copperopolis, Valley Springs, I mean, just generally develop. Starting development, correct?
Correct, correct. So yes, Valley Springs, Copperopolis, and I've spoken to developers in both of those communities. Again, it's tied to being workforce affordable between 80 and 120%, 80 and 120% of area median income. So if they want to go market rate in some of the cases, it may not pencil for them.
Yeah, well, we start looking at like the median income, and this is something I find fascinating is we have all these beautiful houses up, let's say, Highway 4. The median income up there is actually really low, I found out, because different people are able to get grants. We can't get down in the Valley Springs area. So, yeah, you can't build a house for median income in Arnold for a cost that pencils out, right? That's why I'm.
Right.
Is that correct?
That is correct. The other thing is that we're wanting to look at potentially like townhomes and condominiums and those types of things that will pencil for developers.
Right.
You know, we don't need
the most square footage, multi-family structures.
Correct.
Absolutely, for the lowest dollar value.
Correct. And actually that's one of the, so the other thing that's key is it's walkable or it's accessible to public transportation. So we want to make sure we don't have them so far out that there's no way for them to access those opportunities. Then there's the number of units. So each unit, 1 point. Square footage of units. We do have, what's really nice, is we do have pre-approved plans now at the building department, which are fabulous. They're up to 1,200 square feet. So that may be an option to, again, also save and leverage funding for our developers. Number of bedrooms, a 1-bedroom is 5 points, a 2-bedroom is 10 points, 2-bedroom plus is 10 points. So again, we want to make it so that, you know, families can move in, they have opportunity to grow, and then we can backfill those rentals that they were in previously with other folks. Utilizing county pre-approved plans, 5 points. And whether it meets our regional housing needs allocation. We want to make sure that we're targeting those that are in our housing element as part of our general plan. This will look very, very good for us and very good for our goals. And then the affordability. So for moderate income, it's 10 points. For low income, 15 points, and for very low, 20 points. So very low is part of the low income. And that actually puts you at right about 80% of area median income. The 120% is the moderate income classification. And also very important is prior workforce development experience. We want to make sure we're working with developers that know what they're doing, that they're familiar with this, and they're familiar with the requirements in building affordable workforce housing. So what are your thoughts, input?
I'll go ahead, Ms. Waldorf, you already ready.
I was just gonna ask, just for the record, where is Stanislaus Housing Authority?
Well,
On the project?
That's a good question. So I know that admin has reached out. We did hear back that they were interested in actually developing the site now, that they were putting it out for a developer. And lo and behold, a developer did reach out actually to Doug Oliver about developing the site. We are keeping contact with them to see if they move forward. They have sort of promised us that if they don't move forward, that they would then allow the county to have an opportunity at acquiring the property and potentially developing it.
How will that work with the funding timelines? Because you mentioned 2026, you've got money in 2020, 30, you know, it's kind of all over the place. So I just want to make sure, you know, we don't have a missed opportunity and they delay us if we can use these funds before expiration dates to, even if it to help them out, like if this thing finally built.
Right, exactly. So again, I know Marcos has had conversations with them. Teresa, I don't know if you've had more conversations since the end of the year.
So
I actually talked with the developer that was working on their behalf and put him in touch with Mr. Oliver. He was very interested in the utility underground and how they work on that, which I know that's one of the things that we can use this funding for. So I believe that there's a huge opportunity to help support that project.
Awesome. So then I would recommend that I reach out to them and let them know this program exists and see if that helps the program pencil. Because I mean, that's an opportunity that's been sitting there for so long. We really need to get it going. And
I
it's
just want
22
to make
units.
sure we're conscientious of timelines and get as fast as we can to do these kind of matching. Because the last thing I want to do is have to give the money back to the state again. I really don't want to do that. I know it's difficult in a rural area to put these developments, you know. But if people don't want to build, there's not much that we can do at this level. And then the other thing I wanted to ask is, as we're going through this, you know, we've had in the past, I think it used to be Gay's district, now it's Supervisor and Hall's district, you know, we've had ideas come forward, and I want to make sure that if the community protest, I want to make sure as we go forward, we do our due diligence, so when it does hit our level, we're not dealing with, guess, the NIMBYs of the world, that we have things go. We're not wasting their time, we're not wasting our time. And, you know, the community keeps saying we won't have these housing, and then they protest and shut them down. And so I want to make sure that we as a community outside of this boardroom understand the importance of these investments. Otherwise, we can't commit to the community of these developments if they continue to put pressure on us to say no to these ideas that are out there. And so I think that public outreach is going to be an important aspect of this, on some of these as well. So I want to make sure we're conscientious of that, because I don't want to waste anyone's time, the developer's time, staff time, our time, planning commission. We should be able to just, by the time it gets here, it should be all funded up, ready to go. So that's all I
Understood.
have.
And that is actually written in the grant documents and in the policy and guidance, is that we're going to be doing public outreach and public community meetings after we get those proposals on what the projects will be. So that's definitely written in, because we, like you said, we don't want that 11th hour, oh, we hate this, we're not going to support it.
Well, we could end up having that regardless, no matter how much public outreach there is, but I think, you know, as we move forward, just having the correct roadmap, so that way the board knows that groundwork was done, so that there's not any hesitation on a good project, if it is potentially a good project when it comes before us. Yeah, I think that's.
I know, there's always gonna be the naysay, but I don't wanna line out this door of protesting, like what has happened in the past.
Agreed. I do support the idea of this project moving forward. You know, we'll see how it comes up to, and possibly to fruition. At the same time, I do think there's potentially other areas where this money can be used well throughout the county. That so I want to keep the options open and not just say we're gonna do this right now. You know, this right now, we're not making a decision on it, right?
No,
Well-
it's a presentation, it's a
Right,
study
right,
session. I
right.
want your input as I'm
Correct.
developing the
Yeah,
guidance.
and my input personally is there's a couple of potential areas. One of them being, discussed with Mr. Toffenelli in his district. That you know, just making sure that we have capacity possibly down there. That's a major hurdle for the Valley Springs area. And a couple other things taken care of down that area. And you've already talked to the person that owns the property, and I just will send them a message and just say, hey, here's the agenda item. If you're interested, contact this young woman right here, because she's facilitating.
Absolutely.
Kathy, I would suggest, I know you were asking for our opinion regarding the points. Would it make sense that we prioritize what you've given the most points so that the 20 pointers go up front and then the 10 pointers 10, 5? Because to me, that makes the most amount of sense because obviously they're worth more points because they're more important. If the board agrees.
Well, I might score the points differently. How-
Well, I mean, the points are really based on the grant criteria.
Right.
So I just kind of followed suit, but I see what you're saying. In other words, move the 20 points further up into the spreadsheet. And again, I apologize because it's probably like 2-point font on your handout. It looks great on a computer screen. It doesn't print out very well.
Right. I keep getting budget spreadsheets that you can see like that when they print out.
Would we like to vote on points or do I have any?
I think the points are
This
what
is
they
just
are
the
based on
presentation,
grant.
so
Yeah,
it's just feedback.
okay.
As I mentioned, I mean, these are based on what our grant guidelines are and what we're supposed to spend the money on. If that makes sense.
As we're talking with the community, Kathy, and looking at this, when do you want, like, when are we going to discuss this again? When would you like some information back?
As soon as possible, I would like to put out the request for proposals and qualifications by the middle of February at the latest. As Supervisor Follendorf mentioned, I'm really under the gun, especially on the REAP 2.0 funding, which is the bulk of the funding. I really want to be getting going on this quick.
Right.
I would like to have, proposals in, them get ranked, we figure out who's first, second, what their needs are going to be, what our negotiations are going to be, and see how we can get this funding out the door quickly. And again, reaching back out to Stanislaus Regional Housing Authority.
It's typical of the state. It's hurry up, get your request or your grant proposal in, and then wait. Is that correct, Kathy?
That's correct. The other thing that we've been waiting for, unfortunately, is the standard agreement. HCD has had some problem getting those agreements to us in a timely fashion. Again, even though it says 2026, there may be opportunity for us to extend it because we didn't even get our funding agreement until last year, September of last year. So that was a little challenging. But I mean, I've had great response with both HCD at the PLHA level and also the regional early planning level. They respond to me like emails, like within a couple hours. So it's been very good. They're very communicative.
So this,
Yeah, I'm looking at what you have here and you presented. And one of the major hurdles, no matter where you're gonna try and do this, and be the extended accounting basically that we discussed. One of the major problems, and I don't see the funding here saying it, it says infrastructure. Is the capacity for the water and sewer providers. A lot of them are gonna want to have you pay for expansion of their facilities. I'm not sure the grant covers that. So that would be added to the cost of the housing in order to pay for that. I mean, we can set all this stuff up and get it going. We can put in infrastructure, but there's no capacity that we have an agreement with them. And whether the grants cover that, we could be spinning wheels here and not being able to provide what we need to provide. And I agree that we need to provide it. But that's part of all the developers' issues here in the county is the capacity of our suppliers. So. that's
Very
one of
true.
my concerns.
So in the two that I've spoken to, so I spoke to so for the terrace project in San Andreas, right? Capacity was secured for that project. It's 11 parcels, 22 units. That's already been secured. Yes, there's going to be an update to that fee. It's about $22,000 per parcel. That can be covered by this project. Yes.
How many parcels?
11.
There's 11 parcels, 22 units.
Let me ask you this. I don't want to get too deep into it because this is a discussion and we'll have to go through as we move forward. Those connections and the capacity was already secured through for that property in the past, right?
Correct.
And they're gonna add a cost to that when you do it again? So
Connection.
you're gonna have to pay twice?
No, no, no,
San Andres Sanitary?
no.
Okay,
It's not a matter of paying twice. It's that it's already been through the EIR process, so it's approved. And part of that was that they agreed to serve it. But when the service connections happen, then each
Then-
parcel will have to
Right.
pay.
based on the connection.
The connection
fees.
fee.
But okay, so it's not in addition to the capacity and everything else, it's connection costs.
Right, per unit.
So those connection fees were never paid in the past.
So typically developers don't pay connection fees until they're actually constructing something.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the capacity
There's connections look, there's connections on multiple properties in every jurisdiction that have already been paid for on developable properties. But more often than not, until you develop the house, you're correct. But I'm just asking because people have paid their connection fees way prior to development the house. Just want to make sure we're on the straight and narrow on it because things have changed in certain jurisdictions in the past.
And the same with Calaveras Public Utility District for water. So the will serves are there. So again, it's more about connection fees. There's also another parcel that I have had the privilege of checking out here in San Andreas that does have capacity and connections and
I mean, the property right over here by the old airport, is that what you're talking about, San Andreas?
no, that does not have connection fees.
The one by the elementary school.
There's one by the elementary school and there's one by the library. And it's already zoned R3. So, I mean, again, that's going to be part of the ranking criteria. Is it already properly zoned? Does it already have some connections? I mean, that's going to be part of us selecting and moving those projects forward and getting the funding out for development. It's my thoughts anyways. So then the other thing that's in your packet is, and thank you, Brett, for this, is kind of our participation request form. So this will also go into the request for proposal, so that proponents know kind of what we're looking for, making sure that they have experience, making sure that they understand that this is something that is going to be regulated by both, HCD and the county. And so as I mentioned, I'm in the process of developing the RFP and request for qualifications. I want to get it out the door by the middle of next month. Get those proposals back by the end of February, beginning of March. And I mean, I really want to get this going. I feel very, very stressed that we have a short amount of time to get this money out the door.
I have an additional question, and there's probably some new people in the room. Peter, you might have remembered it. I know, we used it a lot within the city of Angels when we were doing our capacity and development agreement for similar for housing. Whatever, does the county utilize the what's the terminology, the mapping that mapping overlay that looks at all of the parcels in the county and keep that updated with this information? Because I know we used it at the city and it was a joint venture between both city and county to use that. But it does take staff to update that information into the database. And then you can do that overlay and hide all of that. I don't remember what the name of that mapping database system is. Maybe you were gone when that happened, but it's been quite a few years. It's been more than 6-7 years. That's why I was thinking maybe you were, but it's you can use it for that data, what you're talking about, and then it pops up and you can see what those parcels have, what they don't, but it is the responsibility of the jurisdiction to keep it updated. But I don't know if the county ever used it. And
I'm not
renewed it.
certain exactly which level of data that we're talking about, but we do, the GIS team has a tremendous amount of data that we all use, all the departments use, and we interface that with census data. So I would say, in general, answer to your questions, yes, we do have a lot of data that we use on a parcel basis. And Kathy and the planning staff will look at whatever we do have available, including federal and state data that we can interconnect with our GIS system to look at how the income levels are based on census tracts. There's just tremendous amount of data that's available for us to use to assist in identifying where the need is greatest.
Gary and I voted to fund that from the call for each district. So that's why I was asking about it, if it was ever used at the county level. But if not, that's fine. I just was curious because previous life it was very helpful.
I know that with our GIS, I can ask GIS to sort like our 3 parcels. I can see who the utility provider is. I can see a lot of data on there per parcel that the general public can't see. It's strictly for internal staff. And then there's other layers. I mean, whether it's in a floodplain or, I can see all the different layers. But I think I remember what you're talking about, Supervisor Follendorf. It was on the city's webpage, and you could go on there and there was a lot of detail, especially in your economic development zones and some of your business district zones. There was a lot of data, and I don't know.
That's the map
Okay.
that we talked about. Yeah. It should be that same, but I don't know what the county decided to do. I don't know.
Nothing that I recall was presented to the board using that data. Make a note to COG that we.
No, to make a note for us that we're paying for it, paid for it, we should be using it.
Kathy, do you have anything else that you need?
No, I don't think so. Any other questions or thoughts? Thank you for your time.
I will carry on capacity. Throughout the county, and that's a major roadblock in multiple areas. Best streamlined possible answer is to find places with already capacity and underground infrastructure. But at this time, that's a shrieking number of properties inside Calaveras County, and our best way to address it moving forward is to get more of those open with capacity and connections in there.
Well, this was an informational item, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Stay tuned.
Awesome. Thank you for everything you do, Kathy. So we'll move on to items 29 and 30.
Yes. Item 29, ordinance planning. 1, conduct a public hearing. 2, find that the historic resources ordinance is both exempt from CEQA and a later project within the scope of the general plan EIR. 3, adopt the proposed ordinance to repeal and replace section 17.16.060 and amend section 17.43.130 of the Calaveras County Code. 4, authorize summary publication.
So I would like to say that I have an interest in a residential property that may constitute a conflict of interest, and I'm therefore recusing myself from this matter. And I would ask that Vice Chair Stopper pick up the gavel, and if you would do item 29 and 30, and then call me back in, that would be great. Well, maybe we'll call you back. Please.
Can I request just a couple minute?
Yeah,
That's your
real
permit.
quick.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just do a couple minutes.
I'm sorry, are we taking a break? Or-
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
Get Carrie needs.
Okay, taking a 5-minute break.
My apologies.
Ready.
You want to read the item?
I will read that item.
Oh, she did already? Oh, okay, I apologize then. I'll open the public meeting. With that, sir.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, Peter Mauer, Special Projects Administrator for the Planning Department. First time I get to use that title, oh boy. So before you is a proposed ordinance to establish the historic resources provisions of the zoning code. As you may recall, back in February of last year, the board adopted an urgency ordinance to protect historic resources from demolition without going through a review process to ensure that the property that may be demolished would not destroy important historic resources. There are several policies and implementation measures in the general plan that intend to protect those resources as they are valuable resources for the county. So it was February 13th that the urgency ordinance was adopted. It was extended for a period of 1 year. So that ordinance would expire February 13th of this year, 30 days from today, which is good because it takes 30 days for this ordinance to become valid. So we don't have a window of opportunity to delay. We've essentially taken that urgency ordinance, modified it somewhat, went through the planning commission, who further tweaked it. The major difference is that the urgency ordinance applied to demolition permits only. What we have done with this draft is expanded that to apply also to modifications, alterations to the structure, as well as relocation of structures. All of those require a building permit. And so the process would be that if someone came in for a permit to modify or alter a building, move a building, or demolish it, we would first look to see if it was on the state or federal list of important resources, or if it was 75 years old and had, historic significance to the county. And there's, standards that we would apply. This would be part of the normal review process for any building permit of that type. If we found that it was an important resource, then we would do a narrow scope, looking only at the historic resource CEQA review to determine what we could do to protect that resource. Is there ways that we could modify the permit so that the importance of that structure is maintained? And so that would then go through the planning commission with ability to appeal to the board if the action of the commission were not satisfactory to any party. Anyway, that's the gist of the ordinance. As I mentioned, there are several implementation measures in the general plan, 2 in the conservation and open space element, 1 in the land use element. But this implements these policies. Because this is implementing the general plan, it's also exempt from CEQA for a variety of reasons. There are 2 categorical exemptions that allow us to move forward with this without going through a formal CEQA review. Also, there's a provision in state law that says if you're implementing a general plan, it's consistent with that plan, it's within the scope, that it's also exempt from further CEQA review. So, we've looked at those. We will file a notice of exemption at the end of this process, but we also need to do a modification to the summary ordinance that was in your packet to add the within the scope provisions of the code. Just wanted to update you on that. We do have one minor correction from what was presented to you, and this would be on page 1035 of your packet. It's under the applicability section. And you see it's B1C, and then there's 4 Roman numerals, and then D at the end of that. Pardon me?
Under D?
Yeah, B1
Oh.
C is on the bottom of page 1035. And you see the D underneath the Roman numeral 4. The
It's
commission-
indented, it shouldn't be. right?
Well, we need to sort of correct that.
Yeah.
At the end of C4, there's a semicolon and the word or. That should be changed to and. And then the D should be Roman numeral 5. And the issue with that is there's sort of an exemption that says if the building is old, but it has been changed so much over the period of time, people have done alterations that no longer really has any integrity or historic significance, then that would sort of end the process. We'd say, go ahead and do your renovation or your demolition. But that provision would only apply to local resources, not to state or federal resources. There's some concern that we might be sort of going beyond the scope of CEQA on that. So that review process would be for our local review. But if it's already on a state or federal list, we'd probably have to do some other type of analysis before we'd get to that point. We'd say, it really no longer qualifies. So that was the point of that clarification. This was something the commission spent quite a bit of time discussing and how we best have that fit in. So this would apply to our local review for locally important resources. It could end up being that the state or federally listed resource, by the time you look at it, we do a more thorough review that we find it, it's still, even though it's on a state list, it would still not make a difference of what they're proposing. But we'd have to do a little bit more thorough analysis of that and how it relates to state and federal law. And so that's why we sort of need to keep it under C and not have it as a separate D as was recommended by the Planning Commission.
I have a question about what
Yes.
your comments you just said on that. So if a project comes in, we don't first go over state and federal and then go to the local? You're saying we go local first and say, okay, and then we go to the state?
No, not at all. We would look at state and local. If it's on the state or local list, clearly it's a significant resource.
They're sort of
It's
independent
only if it's not on
criteria,
those
yeah.
lists, and then we sort of have our own criteria that we establish.
If it's not on that list?
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
Okay.
So I guess with that, I'll turn it over to you if you have any questions about the ordinance or procedure.
Just another possible correction. I'm not sure, and I'm not going Kelly Rooster on this, but E1C on page 1036, I believe. At least 75 years or age.
Of age, yes,
Thank you.
Oh, that was a little bit of
Fat fingers.
but
you're correct.
sorry, I had to do a little bit.
I have a question too, Peter, on, it's F1. Third line down. Alteration or relocation is proposed, involves a building. It just sounds a little clunky to me. Is proposed, does that need to be in there?
I think just either proposed or as proposed. I think it's just another small
Yeah.
typo. Or it could say determination of whether or not the proposed demolition, alteration, or relocation involves. Put it in front
Yeah.
instead. Yeah, I think it would be the same. You guys are like the planning commission up here. I like it. No, I like it.
Channeling Tim Laddick.
No, we're not going there. We'll have all day meetings.
I like it as requested, but
I have a couple questions for you. One, you covered earlier the demo, but what about demo by neglect? And I don't want to restart this whole thing, but what do we do about that? Because there's some historic sites that are beyond you know, it just somehow in here, however it got to where it is, but how do we address the demo by neglect? How do we preserve that? Do we ask them to do a replica and put it at the museum? I mean, I don't know, that's for the specialists, but how do we address that? Because people don't, we can't force somebody, if it's on private property, to put that kind of money that they don't have and those resources.
So
unless we're gonna
yeah.
come in and we're gonna say we're gonna do it for them, that's just not feasible in reality.
I think unfortunately, yeah, Supervisor Frauendorf, as you kind of alluded to, this is triggered when someone's asking for just an approval, right, from the county to do something. And that's why we have then an opportunity to look at these things. In the situation you're describing, they're not asking for any permit or approval from the county, right? They're just letting it. So that is going to have to be addressed. If the board wanted to address that, it would be kind of potentially through code enforcement, sorry, Doug, or a different vehicle, just because they're not requesting an approval from the county.
Could we work with in another day? I mean, I do not want to bog this down, but could that be something we could, because we've had situations that have come up that will be coming up, and how are we going to address that?
Well, it's by situation, may I? I apologize.
No, I do have
But
one.
we do have one that we've had in the past that was a public safety issue on a building where it could fall down. And at that point, you know, I don't think, I think in that situation, I think that we have to address it immediately. In other situations, you know, unless there's a complaint that's been filed, the trigger wouldn't be there. But if it is filed, then it's a situation by situation, and that's where our building official and planning director would be working with said property owner and finding out and working the best way to solve the issue as we move forward, because every issue is not exactly the same when it comes to this. So leaving it kind of broad like this kind of gives them a little bit of room to work the tools that we need to get these places into compliance, let's say.
I'm just
that
used
right?
to an actual policy process. And so that's why that's because I've had experience with a similar situation within a different jurisdiction. But it went through a thorough that eventually it was the board decision what to do. But it did take a lot of abatement, you know, there was things. So we don't have it built into a process. So what does that process look like? So we're not favoring we're all on the same page, I guess, is what I'm getting at. And I get it, there's
That
some
makes
leeway,
sense.
but we can discuss that offline. I just want to make
There's
sure
not
it
a
gets addressed.
templating issue.
Yeah. And then
The
other, oh, go ahead.
just to address that issue, the planning commission discussed that quite a bit. In fact,
Okay.
I think in the draft ordinance that we presented to the commission, we had a provision of that, and they really felt that really raised some significant policy issues that they
Yes.
felt the board should address. I think, given the time frame that we have to get something adopted to at least prevent the demolition of historic structures, it probably something that we might want to discuss at a future date.
Yes,
Because there are some ramifications of, you know, how are we going to enforce this? And do we want to get involved in that level of detail of private property maintenance? It raises some significant policy issues.
And I agree. I just want to make sure we're openly addressing it. We're having the conversation, and for the public members that have the investment and have taken time to help, that we're not ignoring it, you know, that it is recognized and open to maybe future conversations at this level from a policy
Yes.
standpoint. Okay, the other question I had, is.
Thanks, Doug.
You got it, Doug. The other question I had is under section H, on page 1037. We have a list of designees when of the panel. And I'm probably gonna enunciate this wrong, so bear with me. Is there a reason why we didn't add a county archivist?
We actually had that in the draft presented to the commission, but then we felt that that went beyond perhaps the scope of that person's job assignment and didn't want to get involved in having to rewrite the job
Yeah, I mean,
description.
it's just quite simply not within that person's job description to do something even like this. So I think, you know, that's something that potentially could be tweaked in the future, but as of right now, it's not really.
We would most likely confer to, find out what resources are available and, are there, you know, does the archivist have information that would assist the planning director and the building official in making the determination of whether it's important or not, but to actually impose that responsibility on that position, we felt that was inappropriate.
Could we maybe build it in as a confer? So then that way, because when we make, I've just seen it in the past where we discuss it and we have every intent right now in this moment, yes, we're gonna confer, that's the right thing to do. But then people change, boards change, and it falls off of a checklist. So is there a way to somehow recognize it? Can we do that, sir? But not build it within it is recommended to ensure that we confer with X, Y, and Z
I think
as needed.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the board were inclined to do something like that, it would have to be more of a putting something in here that stipulates that planning will do that consultation or see what resources the archives may have that are pertinent. So I mean, I think the board could write that in. I think where it gets problematic is if we're
Yeah, no,
putting something in that
but
part.
can we make it broad
No.
scope so we make sure we've got that checklist on ourselves for accountability?
And I'll just say too that during the planning commission hearing, during that discussion, I did tell the planning commission that I would be reaching out to the archivist and they can respond if they want to. It's, it's up to them at that point, but would be reaching out for that additional expertise from my standpoint, from staff. I know the verbiage in the text isn't in there because there's some job spec issues and we don't want to burden an employee, but it's definitely my intent to reach out to the archivist, and whether they respond or not is completely up to them, but that is certainly my intent.
And that's what I mean, like, we have that intent, but you may not be here in 10, 15 years. I don't know what, I just don't want to just leave it open end because I've seen it time and time again where that we discuss it and then we end up in a fight because it doesn't get done.
May I, with the conditional use permit and the process that we move forward on the conditional use permit, it's extravagant. It's going through multiple levels and, it's not an administrative use permit. This one is not just going to confer these three people. It's going to move on to the planning commission, the board of supervisors, and any person in that position is going to have to do their due diligence. And they bear the burden of providing the information we need to make the right decision. At that point, going through the archivist is essential, especially with finding out the true years of construction, 75 years plus, so on and so forth. Am I correct?
Sure. I hear what Supervisor Fullendorf is saying, though, is that there's nothing in this ordinance that says we are going to reach out to, and maybe we could add something to H2A that is generic in manner that says, utilizing all available resources or something along those lines.
Or in H3 where it says after receiving the panel's report, the planning director shall, develop his or her recommendations. Could put something in there that the planning director will also reference or consult with the archives or something at that stage.
And I understand from an, sorry, Julie, I understand from an HR standpoint, and until we deal with that, I get it. I just hate talking about it and then it just backfires and it ends up in negative solutions.
I just wanted to clarify for the board that the panel review is looking at the substantive
issues to do with the architecture of the building and what have you, and the archivist it basically is just aware of the documents. And so the panel review's purpose is a little bit different, but I think the planning department would be looking at the archivist, not just for purposes of the panel review, but for a broader array of its decision-making. So I just wanted the board to consider the possibility of not making it sound like we're limiting the use of the archivist just to the panel review. So I just wanted to clarify that it's a little bit different. The archivist's range of expertise is a little bit separate from what the panel review is looking at. And I think the planning department already uses the archivist to the extent it needs to find documents related to structures, so that they can then apply analysis to what's the content of those documents. So I just wanted to clarify the roles there.
Maybe, and
That's
Peter.
why I want the expertise, because they have that.
But
Yeah, so I'm wondering if maybe, Peter, if it makes sense, up in C1, where it says that the planning director is responsible for determining whether the building or structure falls within, the ambit of this ordinance, that would be the place where it would make sense to use a ton of different tools, one of which could definitely be,
And it's really inherent in the process. Any
Yeah.
time that we do any kind of SQL analysis, we look at a broad range of resources, state agencies, local experts, federal agencies. So I hear what you're saying. I don't think it needs to be written into the code. I think it's inherent in the process that we do with any kind of project. We're generalists. We're not experts on anything typically. And so we're looking at getting that expert information from a variety of sources. And I think we start micromanaging the process that the planning department goes through when we have to put everything and who we contact in, because there may be some other resource that we're unaware of that, or at least, not unaware of it, that we aren't discussing right now that would help us in making these determinations. So I hear what you're saying. I don't think it's necessary, but we're welcome to put something in if the board feels that's.
I agree with you on something to the point of due diligence. And I mean, I'm not opposed to the C1 idea because that's the proper place for it. I mean, but it's part of the process. Like you said, CEQA, the new CEQA process, which the CUP absolutely entails and everything. And you doing your due diligence, or whoever's here in the future, hopefully we would hire someone that did their due diligence moving forward with all the aspects of getting the information needed to make the determination. I'm not against it.
Can we just add it broadly, please?
Well, yes, but my only concern, and I think Peter kind of alluded to this, is that if we put that in C1, we don't want it to be to the exclusion of all the other unnamed, specifically named resources. So I think the difficulty is going to be figuring out a way to specifically say you have to consult this resource without then listing all the other ones that they would. So I mean, I guess if the board wanted to, we could in theory draft something in that said that under C1 that the planning director will consult, or resources to consult include but should not be limited to. It's a little weird to call one out and not say the others, but I mean, if the board wanted to, that's certainly your prerogative.
Well, I think also as we go through all of this, sorry, Ben, but I mean, we are getting to where those jobs are important. I know, that job is going to start to change as we continue to go into, another 50 years about history, another 100 years about history, and having them part of this eventually, it would be nice to recognize it. I think there's a lot of stuff that the county actually doesn't have that down. And I think that they have an expertise that is important to this, but I mean, it's not gonna be a hill I'm gonna die on, so whatever, but I just think we need to reevaluate other county physicians can be out of this because of the historic standing. If we're gonna make the historic a priority, then we need to make sure that we're adding all of the titles and the expertise as part of it. I mean, I don't know. To make sure there's an overlap.
Using all available resources.
So I have some
Such-
proposed language that you can then decide whether you want to add or not. So
Such as,
at the end of C1, add comma consulting, C1, top of page 1036. Add at the end of that, comma, consulting appropriate resources, including but not limited to the county archivist.
Thank you.
That's where I was gonna work. Amanda,
Yeah, no, thank you.
good job.
I'm rereading it. I'm just surprised it's not, I'm just surprised it wasn't within the scope of.
I do have one comment. I don't know, I don't want to say anything about the historical society. I'm sure they're dealing with them, it's a very good job. But under H1, item C, designee of the Calaveras County Historical Society, it would be within that district. So their designee has to come from, because the person that lives within District 1 or District 2, District 3 would have more knowledge or have the ability within their district. I mean, it's just something that I was thinking about while we're sitting there.
I think it may be limiting the scope because there may be people that live in one district, but have a very broad interest in a certain aspect of the historical character of the county. I think that, and typically who I've dealt with in developing this ordinance was the sort of the head, I can't remember what the title was, that, the chairman or the, director, executive director, I think was the title of the Historical Society. I think that within their organization, they would find someone that said, this is the most appropriate to look at this issue.
Sure.
And it may not necessarily be someone within that district.
I just thought I'd throw it out there that you're probably right. I don't disagree with you.
Okay.
I'm in agreement, in the sense that with these type of things, the historical society would be meeting with themselves, discussing and getting input from the individuals who are the one that's representing them at said meeting. Anyone else? Public comment?
Sal Manna, the Society for the Preservation of West Calaveras History. Just want to say that the ordinance is, it's required, it's needed, it's about time. Thank you to the Planning Commission, the Planning Department, the Building Department, and the board for getting us to this point. It's been a long time coming. Of course, once the ordinance is done, most important part, kind of what Supervisor Follendorf was alluding to, is the process and the implementation. And I thought there should be two guideposts for that, for the public. That's transparency and simplicity. I think someone goes to the desk of the planning department or the building department and says, I want to do this. And they go, what's the year that building was built? Here's the list. You're not on the list. Move on. You are on the list. You get thrown into the process. That's what's done everywhere else and done well. And finally, hopefully, that's what can be done here. So thank you.
Julia Costello, McCollum Hill. And I'm just here to thank you too for getting this process so far. That it has been a long time getting Calaveras County into the mainstream of historic preservation. And during our general plan process, every community identified their historic resources as number one or number two in their communities. And yet our county was outstanding for not having anything to protect them. But we got a foundation in the general plan, and this takes us a huge step forward. In protecting these important resources in our county. And I want to amend my colleague's comment that the list that we have so far is just the list we have so far. We haven't inventoried every building in the county. So your building may be over 75 years old and not on the list and may be eligible. And that's where the planning director is going to have to make that call. So simply not being on the current list doesn't mean you're out of the woods, right? You may have an important historic building. And you could ask, I imagine, to be added to the list. You could have homeowners that want to use the Mills Act, which is coming up. And in order to use the Mills Act or the Historic Building Code, you have to be on that list. So property owners can come in, and I'm sure there will be a process that the planning department will consider their application and put them on it. No. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julia. Just, I have one further question real quick before I close it down on something you do. And it's right to that point. So, E1C goes to applicability, or I mean, I'm sorry. Let me get back down to it. Goes to the Register of Historical Buildings and everything, and then it refers to the process going through to 17.16.060 B1C. And it goes down through this, and to that point, this is gonna have to be determination and moving forward, but there are definitely buildings over 75 years old that may not be worth the historical significance. But there's others that are. So as we move forward, we want to be careful of who we impose these type of things on and everything. And I just want to say, everyone, just use your best judgment, and let's not push too hard on things that aren't hills we want to die on. When when it comes to imposing that onto other people and the costs that are incurred. That's all I have to say. Does any other supervisor have anything to say on this prior to me closing the public hearing? All right, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll consider a amended with everything we discussed motion.
Move. Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second, Ms. Follendorf and Ms. Andal. Do we do a roll call on this one? I did close the public hearing. Okay. Okay, so.
And just so we can clarify, I have 4 amendments, corrections to the ordinance. They're in B1C, the sort of technical change of and in Roman 5. We're changing is to as in F1. We're changing or to of in E1, and we're adding the additional language regarding the county archivist in C1.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Peter.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes on 4-0, 1 recused.
Okay.
Item 30, resolution planning, find the project both exempt from CEQA and a later project within the scope of the general plan EIR, and adopt a resolution establishing procedures to implement the Mills Act to encourage voluntary preservation of historic resources.
Well, this is a companion measure.
I'll open the public.
I don't actually believe this
Oh,
one
this
requires
is
a
not
public
public?
hearing. It's a resolution.
I'm incorrect. I will not open it.
So this is a companion measure to the ordinance that we just adopted. That was the stick, and this is the carrot. Mills Act is a provision that allows for reduced taxes for protected historic resources. And so this is very similar in nature to the Williamson Act, where someone who wants to participate in this can apply, demonstrate that they have a historic resource. The county assessor then would look at that and base it on a separate revenue and taxation code standards for assessment. I have talked to the county assessor about this. She's in agreement with it. And so this is basically allowing someone now to be able to apply for this tax provision that would
provide the carrot to protect the resource. Any questions?
I was gonna move it, but I realized you need.
Wait, I'm gonna leave it to, with that, I'll move to public comment. We got thumbs up over there. I'll bring it back to the board. There's no public hearing to close, so I won't close it, and I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
So moved by Ms. Fullendorf,
I will second.
a second by Ms. Andal. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 401. Vote of the board.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
This
you.
will
I do
become
have a
effective
question
30
real
days.
quick on
Yes.
the item before, item 29. The second reading will be coming back to us. Was that the first reading on that?
No, because this is a zoning code amendment, it's a different process.
It's a different
Because it went through the
process.
planning
Okay.
commission, there's no second reading.
Okay.
Right, so it'll
It
just take
becomes
effect
effective
30 days
from
from
today.
Okay.
3 days, February 13th.
Mr. Martin, not in. Go wake him up.
I think I hear him. Thank you.
Like everything on the screen.
I should know.
Thank you. I'll bring it back for supervisor announcements and we could start. Actually, let me ask first, because I was going to bring it up when we were choosing committees. Is everybody happy with where they're sitting? Because I know right. I prefer being here. I know chair is normally in the middle, but by sitting here, I can see everybody, so I don't miss anybody when they want to speak. So, okay, in any case, Supervisor Stopper, would you have anything to announce?
I don't.
Okay. Supervisor Toppinelli?
I have nothing to announce other than had a great holidays and happy new year to everybody.
I do, last week I attended the OCOC first board meeting of the year. Everyone was really great and welcoming, and I look forward to attending that the rest of the year.
Supervisor Randall?
I just wanted to again say thank you to the voters for having confidence in me, and thank you to the staff for the warm welcome, and thank you to the board.
Super. CEO Hitchcock.
I have nothing.
County Council?
No, thank you.
Stacy, you'd like to say anything?
No, just looking forward to another great year.
And Susan. Susan, we got wired in. Yeah. I would just like to report that with Supervisor Garamendi on December 12th and 13th, I attended the Sierra Nevada Conservancy in Auburn. And that we also on December 16th, Supervisor Garamendi and I were able to give the proclamations at Foothill Village to 6 centenarians, and it was fantastic. And when somebody talks about their great grandchildren being, I mean, it's just crazy that they're the longevity of these women, and they were very inspirational. And most of them having had worked in the war effort in the factories. It was incredible. It was a great experience. And I'd lastly like to say, I'm just hugely honored to be chair, and thank you very much. There are a lot of very happy Hupperties right now. Unfortunately, some of them are in the ground, but they're with us. So thank you. And with that, I will end the meeting at,
Sorry. Closed session.
We're going to adjourn into closed session.
oh, that's right. I apologize. Yeah, we'll adjourn into closed session, but we'll close the regular meeting at 11:28.
Thank you.
Thank you all.